Well, the thunderous waters of Niagara Falls could soon turn into just a trickle. New York State officials are considering temporarily diverting water from the falls to make some major repairs.
What if the world's most powerful forces weren't just found in nature, but in the secrets they hide beneath the surface? What lies beneath a waterfall that has thundered for thousands of years? Could drying up a natural wonder reveal something no one was prepared to see? They drained Niagara Falls, but made a terrifying discovery. And that was only the beginning.
A 19-year-old Japanese student was swept over Niagara Falls after falling from a railing along the Niagara River.
She was right here. That's exactly where she was, right there. Sitting, straddling that right there.
Across the planet, there are places where water vanishes, bleeds, glows like fire, or hides mysteries that science still struggles to explain. Niagara Falls has always been a place that makes people stop and stare. For as long as anyone can remember, this giant waterfall has sent huge amounts of water crashing down, creating a sound so loud it feels like the earth is shaking. However, there was one remarkable moment in history when that powerful noise suddenly ceased, and what happened during that time left everyone stunned. Back in the year 1969, a group of scientists and engineers made a bold decision. They stopped the flow of water on the American side of Niagara Falls. Yes, they actually turned off part of one of the most famous waterfalls in the world. And when the water disappeared, what lay underneath was something no one expected.
Yes, you may have seen the majesty of Niagara Falls, but you've never seen it quite like this.
The reason behind this was serious. The rocks around the American Falls were slowly wearing away, and experts were worried that parts of them might break apart completely. To understand what was going on, they needed a closer look, but they couldn't study the area while water was rushing over it. So they decided to block the water with a huge wall called a dam. This dam was approximately 600 feet wide and constructed from more than 27,000 tons of rock. It sent all the water that usually fell over the American side over to the Canadian side instead. And just like that, for the first time in thousands of years, the American Falls ran dry. As the bottom of the falls lay bare, people were shocked by what they saw. The muddy ground was covered in coins tossed in by visitors over the years. But among those shiny surprises was something darker. They drained Niagara Falls, but made a terrifying discovery. Scientists found 2 human skeletons buried in the rocks. These bones didn't match any records of known accidents. No one knew who they were, or how long they had been there. And something even sadder happened during the study. A man who had come to watch the scene from above lost his balance and fell. He died, and his body was found several days later, adding more heartbreak to the story. Even with the eerie discoveries, people were drawn to the dry falls like never before. Crowds gathered to walk near the riverbed and take pictures of something no one thought they'd ever see. But not everyone felt good about it. Some experts worried that shutting off the falls could hurt animals, fish, and plants that lived nearby. Others questioned if it was right to change nature, even for a short time. In the end, the scientists completed their study and allowed the water to flow again. They also added new safety systems to protect the rocks from deteriorating too quickly. Since then, no one has dared to stop the falls again. Today, the idea of turning off such a powerful waterfall feels almost too wild to believe. However, the story of Niagara Falls extends far beyond this single event. To really understand it, you have to go way back, not just hundreds, but thousands of years, to a time when the Earth looked completely different. Niagara Falls was actually born from ice. During the last ice age, giant glaciers covered much of North America. As the ice began to melt, the water rushed down and carved out the land, eventually forming the waterfall we know today. And even though Niagara Falls is one of the most famous waterfalls in the world, it's not the tallest. In fact, hundreds of waterfalls are taller. For example, Angel Falls in Venezuela is more than 3,000 feet high. That makes Niagara's 167-foot drop look small. But the secret behind Niagara's fame is not its height. It's how strong it is. Niagara Falls is not like most tall waterfalls that gently pour down rocky cliffs. Instead, it roars with power. The amount of water that rushes over the edge every second is almost unbelievable. More than 3,000 tons of water crash down each second, and this non-stop force has been carving and shaping the land for thousands of years. To truly understand how this waterfall came to be, the story goes all the way back to a time long before people ever saw it. Around 18,000 years ago, this entire region was covered in giant sheets of ice, as thick as 2 miles in some places. These glaciers moved slowly across what is now Canada and the northeastern United States. As they moved, they carved out huge holes in the land, which would later fill up to become the Great Lakes. When the Ice Age ended, something extraordinary happened. The ice began to melt, and the water had to go somewhere. It rushed over the land, forming rivers and lakes. Eventually, a powerful flow of water began to cut through the rocks, digging a deep canyon. This is how the Niagara River was formed. Over time, the rushing water gave birth to the majestic waterfall known as Niagara Falls. Now, many people think the Niagara River is simply blue, but if you look closely, you'll see a strong green color running through it. That greenish color comes from minerals. Every single minute, over 60 tons of these dissolved minerals are carried by the fast-moving water. These minerals help break down the rocks even more, changing the shape of the land bit by bit, day after day. So Niagara Falls isn't something frozen in time. It's always changing. The water continues to wear away the rock beneath it, and because of that, scientists believe something surprising. They say that one day Niagara Falls might be gone. If erosion continues at the same rate, the falls could disappear completely in approximately 50,000 years. The water would continue to flow, but the waterfall itself would move so far upstream that it would become just a quiet stream. Thinking back to when Niagara Falls went dry for a short time in the year 1969, it may have felt shocking. But in truth, that moment might be a small preview of what could happen far into the future, when the mighty roar of the falls is finally silenced. Now, speaking of disappearing waterfalls, there was once a waterfall even more massive than Niagara Falls. It was taller, wider, and more powerful. But today, it is nothing more than dry cliffs and dusty rocks. This place is called Dry Falls, located in the state of Washington. Its size is almost hard to imagine. It stretches over 3.5 miles across and once dropped over 400 feet. Long ago, it was one of the strongest waterfalls on the planet. But it didn't form calmly or slowly. It was created during one of the most violent natural disasters in history. During the last ice age, a giant lake existed in what is now Montana, known as Glacial Lake Missoula. This lake was held back by a thick wall of ice, but when that ice wall broke apart, it released a flood unlike anything the world had ever seen. The water rushed out with incredible force, speeding through Washington at about 65 miles per hour. It tore through the land, carving deep paths and shaping what we now call the channeled scablands. And right in the middle of that destruction, Dry Falls was born. Even though the water is gone now, the cliffs remain. If you stand at the edge today, it still looks like a waterfall. The rock walls are massive, and you can almost picture the water crashing down against them. But instead of rushing water, there is only silence. Since the falls dried up, scientists have been able to study the rocks closely. They found layers of volcanic rock mixed with sediments from the floods. These hidden layers reveal stories of powerful forces and massive changes that have occurred over millions of years. But Dry Falls holds more than just ancient secrets. When the water disappeared, so did the fish, plants, and animals that once relied on it. The loss of water altered the natural balance in the area. Some species vanished completely, and the local ecosystem had to adapt or disappear. What makes it even more important today is what scientists believe it represents. To them, Dry Falls serves as a poignant reminder of how quickly the environment can change. As the world warms and weather patterns shift, places like Dry Falls offer a glimpse into what might happen elsewhere. The land around Dry Falls is also rich in history. For a long time, Native American tribes have seen it as a sacred place. They used it as a marker and passed down stories tied to its powerful past. And now, there's another famous waterfall that may be heading down the same path. It is one of the most visited waterfalls in America. But slowly and silently, it is beginning to dry up right before our eyes. Waterfalls are often seen as timeless. They seem like they'll keep flowing forever, tumbling from cliffs and crashing onto rocks below without ever stopping. But something unexpected is happening in California. One of the tallest waterfalls in North America is slowly fading away. That waterfall is Yosemite Falls. Found right in the middle of Yosemite National Park, this stunning waterfall stands over 2,400 feet tall. When it's flowing, the sight is breathtaking. Water rushes down with incredible force, filling the valley with mist and sound. However, in recent years, that familiar roar has begun to quiet down. Increasingly, Yosemite Falls is running dry. Now, some might think it's just part of nature. After all, many waterfalls slow down or disappear in certain seasons. But this is different. This is more than a dry spell. It's a warning. Each time Yosemite Falls stops flowing, it reveals a rough and lonely landscape. Without the water, the stream beds are dry and cracked. Ancient rocks, usually hidden under rushing streams, sit exposed to the sun. And perhaps most troubling of all, the plants and animals that depend on the water start to vanish. Fish, birds, and insects disappear, and entire ecosystems begin to fall apart. So what's causing it? The biggest reason is climate change. Yosemite Falls relies on snow from the Sierra Nevada mountains. Every winter, snow piles up. Then, when it melts in spring, it feeds the falls. However, warmer global temperatures are causing the snowpack to shrink. There's less snow now, and it melts too quickly. In 2015, Yosemite Falls dried up 2 months earlier than usual. Even parts of the Merced River, which runs through the park, have dried up completely. The result? Fish are left stranded, and thirsty wildlife struggles to survive. But rising temperatures aren't the only issue. Water that should be flowing through Yosemite is often taken for other uses. For many years, large amounts of water have been diverted for farming. That's because the land around the park is used to grow crops. In some cases, laws permit this to occur, even if it harms the environment. Once, 5 miles of the Merced River ran completely dry. No flowing water, no fish, nothing but dust and cracked ground. So, what does all of this mean for Yosemite Falls? If things keep going this way, the falls could disappear entirely. In a few decades, it might become just another dry cliff. Another place where water once rushed, but now stands still, just like Dry Falls in Washington. A place that once roared with life is now silent. But there's still a bit of hope. After a winter of record-breaking snow, Yosemite Falls came roaring back to life last year. For the first time in years, water flowed year-round. The sound returned. The mist returned. And so did the life that depends on it. This surprising return demonstrated that nature can recover, but only if it is given the chance. Still, that moment of revival might not last. Yosemite Falls is living on borrowed time. Without serious changes, the waterfall could fade for good. And just as one natural wonder disappears, another strange one appears in a very different corner of the world. Because off the coast of a tropical island in the Indian Ocean, the sea seems to be falling into a deep underwater hole. It's not science fiction. It's a real place, and it might just be one of the most mysterious ocean illusions on Earth. As the old saying goes, nature abhors a vacuum. And sometimes it fills that space with the unbelievable. At first glance, it appears to be something out of a dream. Off the coast of the tropical island of Mauritius, the ocean appears to be spilling into a giant hole. It appears as if the sea itself is tumbling downward, like someone pulled the plug on the ocean floor. But this strange and beautiful sight isn't what it seems. And speaking of nature's mysteries, there's a place so cold and remote that it holds a waterfall that looks like it's bleeding. In the frozen heart of Antarctica, a strange red stream pours from the base of a glacier. It's not a trick of the light or a patch of red algae. This is real, and it's called Blood Falls. The sight is shocking. A thick, deep red flow seeps out from the Taylor Glacier and spills onto the ice below. When scientists first observed it more than 100 years ago, they were unsure of its significance. Many believed it was some kind of algae turning the water red. But later research revealed the real reason. The water pouring out is packed with iron. As it meets the air, the iron reacts with oxygen and turns a rusty red color, just like metal left out in the rain. That's what gives the falls their bloody appearance. What's even more incredible is where the water comes from. It has been trapped beneath the glacier for over 1.5 million years. That ancient water has remained liquid all this time, despite the freezing cold temperatures in Antarctica. How is that possible? The secret lies in salt. This underground water is much saltier than ocean water, and salt water freezes at a lower temperature. So, even under a thick sheet of ice, it remains liquid. Additionally, when the salty water freezes slowly, it releases heat, which prevents some of the surrounding water from freezing as well. But the biggest surprise came in 2019. Scientists discovered tiny living organisms inside that ancient salty water. These life forms have survived without sunlight or oxygen for over 1 million years. They feed on iron and sulfur, living in conditions that seem impossible. This has led scientists to a big question. If life can survive under a glacier in Antarctica, could it also exist in the frozen oceans of other planets or moons? Places like Europa, which orbits Jupiter, may hold similar secrets. Even though Blood Falls doesn't flow all the time, it continues to puzzle and amaze scientists. No one knows how much water is still hidden below, or what other forms of life might be waiting to be discovered. And while this strange waterfall tells a story from Earth's ancient past, there's another waterfall in the United States that's just as mysterious and maybe even more puzzling. In a quiet forest in Minnesota, there's a waterfall with a secret. It looks normal at first. A river called the Brule splits into 2 streams at a rocky point. One stream flows down into Lake Superior, just like any regular waterfall. But the other stream vanishes. It pours into a deep hole in the ground, and no one knows where it went. This hole is known as the Devil's Kettle. For years, people tried to solve the mystery. They tossed in objects like ping-pong balls, food coloring, and even tracking devices. But nothing ever came back out. It was as if the earth had swallowed them whole. Some believed the water flowed into hidden caves or underground rivers. Others thought it might appear somewhere far away, perhaps even in another state. The mystery grew, and the Devil's Kettle became one of the strangest natural wonders in the country. Other terrifying discoveries also occurred there. If you want to explore them too, like this video and tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.